Well, this movie happened. Dark Phoenix is the next in the X-Men franchise, directed by Simon Kinberg, who usually is a writer on these movies. Once again, this movie stars Michael Fassbender, James McAvoy, Sophie Turner, Ty Sheridan, among many others. This movie is the X-Men franchise's second attempt in adapting the Dark Phoenix storyline, where Jean Grey basically goes berserk and the rest of the team have to help her come back to the team and control her power. Going into this movie, I really wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt. Up to this point, I've liked the movies in this current iteration of the X-Men, and I mean starting from First Class, then going to Days of Future Past. Both of those amazing, blew me away. Then there was Apocalypse, which wasn't as good as the last two, but it also wasn't terrible. It was just very middle of the road for me. So going into Dark Phoenix, I still had some hope that they can maybe pull it off. And to be honest, I was disappointed. So let's get into it. Also, I will be talking spoilers in this review. The first half will be non-spoilers, and so if you don't want any spoilers after that part, then you can click away, but also don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. But if you either don't care about spoilers or you've already seen the movie, then feel free to keep watching after that point, where we can get into the nitty-gritty stuff about this movie. So let's get into it. So what worked? There's not a lot that worked for me, but if I had to pick a few things, I would say one, I liked the team dynamic, especially towards the beginning where they were working together to complete a mission. I thought that was well done. You saw how each of their powers were contributed to the greater cause. You saw how some of the powers mixed together. I thought that was good. I think that was the X-Men franchise at its best, where you see them all working together, because sometimes in these movies you see them splinter off in the different directions or go on separate adventures, so you don't always get to see the whole team dynamic. So I thought that was great. Performance-wise, I think people generally did okay. Of course, Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy killed it in their respective roles as Xavier and Magneto. Again, they've been some of the highlights of these movies, and by that I mean from First Class till now. Some of the performances weren't as good as them, or they maybe weren't given good enough material to work with, but I could tell that a lot of the actors were trying to do something with this movie, so I'll give them that. And I'd say some of the action stuff was cool here and there, especially with like the train fight scene. I think that was cool. But then after maybe like 30 minutes into the movie, things start to fall apart, which brings me to what didn't work. One thing that didn't work for me was I think that this movie did not fit well in the continuity of X-Men. I think it ignores things from previous movies. It ignores character development from previous movies, and so some things kind of feel weird and out of place, and some things come out of nowhere that I didn't expect. Because sometimes also it feels like this movie was maybe like the sixth, where like there's maybe one or two movies in between this and Apocalypse, because there's some things that they mention in this movie. I'm like, wait, when did that happen? Or they say, oh yeah, this happened. They gave us this. They did this, and I'm like, I don't remember this happening at all. So I think they also kind of glaze over some kinds of things here. Also, for example, Sophie Turner and Ty Sheridan as Jean and Scott, we see that they have their relationship, which we've seen in previous X-Men movies, but with those two actors specifically, they didn't really do much for that relationship, especially in Apocalypse, because that was actually the first time we've seen them in an X-Men movie. And so then to immediately jump into them being in a very committed relationship was kind of weird. I mean, I know if you've read the comics or you've seen the other movies, you know that's going to happen, but at the same time, it would have been nice for them to explain it a little bit or have some build up to it, which is another thing. I think this movie was kind of rushed. I think there were, even though it was delayed like twice, I think, there was definitely times where they could have slowed things down, explained some things, because some things they just kind of breezed through, and it kind of left me confused at the end. Another thing that bothered me about this movie was the dialogue. Sometimes it was just weird and clunky and kind of awkward. I think Simon Kinberg, again, was a writer for previous movies, but as a director, I don't know if he's good with directing the actors and how to deliver certain lines, because sometimes it felt weird. It felt kind of not like a normal conversation, if that makes sense. And then also there's a weird thing that I noticed. I don't know if anybody else saw this, but there would be moments where one character would say something, and then two other characters would repeat exactly what that other person just said, but they would reword it differently. So in one conversation, you hear everybody say the same thing over and over again. And that part was kind of weird. I think it happened like 2 or 3 times in the movie, at least that I saw. There's other times where just some lines just didn't work for me. And a general problem going off of that is that I think that we have a great cast that they give us, and actors that I've seen do great things in other movies, but then in this movie it's like it's not the same. And I think part of that is because they're not given good material to work with. And so you can tell some actors are trying their best, but at the same time some things weren't written well, so it just doesn't come off as strong of a performance, which is unfortunate. Looking at the movie as a whole, I think there were also structure problems with how they organized the story. I think, like I said, the first 30 minutes or 40 minutes or so, I think there was somewhat of a good movie kind of happening. And I was like, all right, I'm kind of interested. I'm kind of invested a little bit, especially when they go into like Jean's backstory. No spoilers there. But then after a certain point, it both figuratively and literally goes off the rails, and things just start happening for the sake of happening. And we don't really know why. Some scenes just happen, and I'm just kind of sitting there watching, like, all right, this is what we're doing. And sometimes I don't think there was, after a certain point, a full story kind of happening. There was at the beginning, but then after a while, it was just action scene after action scene, and I don't think it really flowed well like other X-Men movies. So that kind of took me out of it for a lot of, well, not a lot, but I would say like the back half of this movie. Before I get into spoilers, let me give you the verdict. I think in general, I walked out of this movie disappointed and confused. I wouldn't say I had high hopes for this movie, but I was kind of hoping they maybe would pull it off, especially since this is probably the last of this version of the X-Men before Disney makes their own version and the MCU has the X-Men. So in that regard, I was again disappointed. If you're a big X-Men fan and you will support anything they do, then I'd say, yeah, you can go see this movie. You probably will enjoy it. But I also would probably say no, pay full price, maybe like Discount Tuesday somewhere like AMC, Cinemark, wherever your movie theaters are. Uh, yeah, but I wouldn't say I really enjoyed it. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. It was just it was a letdown. So I personally would not recommend it. If you're a big X-Men fan and you don't care what the critics are saying and you want to go see it for yourself, then go right ahead. Always get your own opinion about these things, but I generally would not recommend it to you. All right, so let's get into spoilers. Again, if you don't want this movie spoiled, click away right now. This is a spoiler alert. Click away right now. And give you a second. All right, are you gone? Are you still here? All right, I'm assuming if you're still here, you're ready to talk spoilers. So let's get into it. A lot of things in the movie bothered me. First being the story structure. In the beginning, you see the whole backstory about Jean Grey, and you see that she potentially killed her parents, but then you find out her dad is actually alive. And so that stuff was fine. But then after that, where she kills Raven, which for some reason was in the trailer, that's tangent. Why would you put that in the trailer? Because it's not even something that happens in the very beginning of the movie. It's kind of something that happens like well into the movie. So why would you give away such a major story point in your second trailer? That was weird. But anywho, after that part where you see her go head on with the X-Men after that whole thing, then the story just kind of gets a little messy. First, we see that Quicksilver is injured in this battle, but then after you see him get carried away, we don't see him again for the rest of the movie. He just kind of disappears. So that makes me believe that both Evan Peters and Jennifer Lawrence were kind of just done with it, and they just wanted to get out. So they're like, all right, we'll take you out early, so you don't have to worry about the rest of this movie. So that part was disappointing. From there, just stuff started to happen for reasons. We see this alien group that is led by Jessica Chastain and this other guy. I don't know the actor's name. They are trying to get the power that's within Jean to try and use it to save their planet, which again could have been interesting, but it just was never fully fleshed out. Also, they're told to be very like stiff and like neutral and like not really emoting a lot. So their performances weren't really drawing me in. They were just kind of like very bland. I don't think as villains. I don't think they were really even villains. Maybe they were kind of like kind of how the Skrulls were in Captain Marvel. Like they were villains at first, but maybe there's like a new perspective that they were gonna do, but they just didn't end up doing it. So that was weird. There's a scene in the mansion where they're fighting, and there's a part where Jean makes Charles walk up the stairs. Like she forces him to walk up the stairs, and That part just looked weird. Like the CGI in some places was definitely kind of off. And this one particularly, like me and my friend were giggling in the theater because he just looked so goofy. He was just like a rag doll. Like if you see that movie Going to the Store, if you look that up, it's kind of the same thing where he's just flailing his limbs as he's going up the stairs. It just looked really weird. At that point, that's when they try to make Jessica Chastain's character more of a villain, but even so, I feel like that didn't work. After that, they end up on the train, and I also got to think about it. I don't know if they actually said where that train was going. They were just on a train being captured, and then they get let loose to help fight the alien people that are coming after Jean. And so this fight scene happens, and you see them fighting, but like, there's no reason really for them to be. I mean, they're fighting to protect Jean, obviously, but at the same time, story-wise, I don't know where this was leading. The train derails because Jean wakes up and she's like, "I'm gonna save everybody," and like lifts the train up, and then again, this is when the movie literally and figuratively goes off the rails. And then she lifts it up, and then they end up in this random place, whatever. It's the final battle, but then it ends with Jean and this alien lady like flying up into space and like I guess turning into fire. I didn't really get that. And then she supposedly, or at least what they thought, she died, but she didn't really. You see her like in the sky later. First, they changed the name of the school to Jean Grey School instead of Xavier School, and I was like, wait, what? And then after that, we see Eric and Charles playing chess in the middle of a town, like they're best friends again. And so these two things really stood out to me because, one, Days of Future Past made it so that even though it's a new timeline, we generally end up in the same place that we were when like Last Stand happened, or even before that. But then now it's like it kind of ignored that. And then also there's the build-up since First Class of the conflict. Even before that, even like the original movies, this conflict between Charles and Eric, Magneto and Professor X, that they were always at odds with each other. They at one point were friends, and they were very close friends, and they did sort of share values, but at the same time they were always neck and neck, sort of. And now all of a sudden it's like they're cool just because. And so those two things together made me think that, one, when they changed the third act, reportedly, that they realized that Disney was taking over, and so they didn't have to really try anymore. They kind of just wanted to end it. And so overall, I was kind of disappointed that this movie didn't really give good closure and finality to this version of the X-Men. Because that's all I really wanted, is that they gave it a proper ending of sorts, and I don't think we got that. So it is what it is. Hopefully the Marvel Studios, Disney, they do better and give us something. And I mean, I wish at some point that they could have used these same actors again, but kind of like rebooted it, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So that's it. That's Dark Phoenix. So have you seen Dark Phoenix? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. More movie reviews coming and some other stuff, so be on the lookout. See you in the next one.